Have you ever been stabbed in the back by someone you thought would always protect you? Not by an enemy, but by the person you called your best friend? This is the story of Clara, a woman who was publicly mocked, humiliated, and body shamed by the very person she trusted most, her best friend Sophie. What Sophie didn't know was that the laughter she sparked would awaken a fire in Clara, a fire that would change both of their lives forever. Clara was never one for large crowds, especially after years of struggling with her weight. But when Sophie, her best friend since childhood, sent a voice note saying, "You have to be at my engagement party. Clara, you're like my sister." Clara felt touched. They'd been inseparable growing up, sharing secrets, dreams, and heartbreaks. Sure, Sophie had become more distant after college, chasing the social media influencer lifestyle, while Clara focused on her art and a quiet life. But deep down, Clara believed their bond was still real. She spent days picking the perfect outfit, a soft lavender dress that made her feel hopeful. She even splurged on a professional hairstyle. She told herself, "Tonight, I'll celebrate Sophie's happiness. Nothing else matters." She was wrong. The engagement party was lavish, a rooftop venue, fairy lights strung like constellations, and a DJ blasting upbeat music. At first, Clara enjoyed herself, sipping punch and catching up with distant friends. But halfway through, Sophie clinked her champagne glass and called for attention. "Before I thank everyone for coming," Sophie said, smiling at the crowd, "I want to give a special shout out to my best friend, Clara. She's been with me through thick." Sophie paused, glancing deliberately at Clara's body, and thicker. The crowd chuckled. Clara froze. Sophie continued, "Honestly, I'm so glad she came tonight. I told her there'd be plenty of food." And clearly she didn't disappoint. Laughter erupted, some awkward, some cruel, but all piercing. Clara's hands trembled around her drink. She forced a smile, but inside, shame was clawing at her chest. The worst part? Sophie locked eyes with her and smirked. It wasn't a slip of the tongue. It was deliberate. Clara excused herself, muttering about the bathroom. In the mirror, she saw a woman try not to cry, her lipstick perfect, her heart shattered. She thought about walking back in, pretending nothing happened. But instead, she straightened her back, walked over to Sophie, and said calmly, "Congratulations, Sophie. You got the audience you always wanted." Sophie blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, come on, Clara, it's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive." Clara tilted her head. A joke stops being funny when the person you claim to love is the punchline. And with that, Clara left. For the next few days, Clara replayed the scene in her head. She heard the laughter. She saw the smirk. She remembered all the times Sophie had made smaller comments about her body over the years, disguised as concern or teasing. Something inside her shifted. This wasn't about revenge. This was about reclaiming herself. She signed up for a gym the next morning. But it wasn't a crash diet or a desperate bid to fit in. Clara's mission was simple: become stronger, inside and out. The first weeks were brutal. 5:30 a.m. alarms, aching muscles, self-doubt whispering, "You'll never change." But Clara refused to quit. She fueled her body with real food. She lifted weights until her hands blistered. She walked miles while listening to motivational talks and journaling her progress. She didn't post a single update online. No hashtags. No before and after photos. This transformation was hers alone. By the 6-month mark, her body was visibly different, but it was her posture, her calm confidence, that truly transformed. One evening, Clara got a message from Daniel, Sophie's older brother. He was hosting a networking dinner for local creatives and thought Clara might enjoy it. She almost said no, until she remembered Sophie would be there. Clara went shopping and found the dress, a deep emerald green wrap dress that hugged her new figure perfectly. She paired it with gold earrings and a quiet smile. The dinner was at an upscale restaurant. When Clara walked in, the room seemed to pause. People whispered, "Is that Clara?" Sophie's eyes widened. She masked it quickly with a tight smile. "Wow, Clara, someone's been busy." Clara sipped her wine. Some changes happen quietly, Sophie. Others speak for themselves. Throughout the evening, people gravitated toward Clara. They wanted to hear about her art, her discipline, her mindset. Even Daniel couldn't hide his admiration. Sophie tried to dominate the conversation, but her usual sparkle felt dimmer. It wasn't that Clara was trying to overshadow her. It was that Clara no longer shrank to make Sophie shine. By the end of the night, Daniel said something that made Clara's heart race. "You're not just different, Clara. You're magnetic." 2 weeks later, a women's wellness platform reached out to Clara. Someone from the dinner had recommended her as a speaker for their upcoming event. Clara's talk, from punchline to power, went viral. She didn't mention Sophie's name. She didn't need to. The message was universal. Your worth isn't up for debate, and you don't need their permission to rise. Meanwhile, Sophie's influencer career hit turbulence. Her engagement photos were perfect, but her fiancé quietly ended things, citing different values. Her follower count plateaued, sponsorship slowed, and slowly, the same friends who once laughed at her jokes began gravitating toward Clara's authenticity. One rainy afternoon, Clara bumped into Sophie at a boutique. Sophie forced a smile. "Clara, you look amazing. I guess I always knew you had it in you." Clara's voice was calm. "You didn't always know, Sophie. If you did, you wouldn't have tried to make me small." Sophie sighed. "It was just one night, one joke." Clara met her eyes. "It was a betrayal, and I survived it. That's the difference between us. You needed people to laugh. I needed to grow." Clara paid for her scarf and left, heels clicking against the wet pavement like punctuation marks. A year later, Clara launched Project Phoenix, a mentorship program for teens who had been bullied or body shamed. She taught them fitness, self-expression, and resilience. Her first student, Maya, was a shy 14-year-old who had been called Whale at school. By the end of the program, Maya stood on stage delivering a TEDx talk titled, "I Am Not Your Joke." It reached over 2 million views in a week. Clara watched from backstage, tears in her eyes. She realized this was never about proving Sophie wrong. It was about proving herself right. At a charity gala 2 years after the wedding, a journalist asked Clara, "If you could say one thing to the people who mocked you back then, what would it be?" Clara smiled. "Thank you. You were the thunder. I became the storm." The photo of that moment appeared on magazine covers. Sophie saw it. She didn't comment. She just stared at the woman she once belittled. The woman the world now celebrated. Clara never went back to being the best friend in the shadow. She became her own light. And Sophie? She learned the hard way. When you make someone the punchline, you might just be setting up the most powerful comeback of their life. Dear viewers, true power isn't about revenge. It's about becoming so strong, so confident, so at peace, that the people who once tried to break you have no choice but to watch you soar.